meeting of Wednesday the 5th of February. Welcome the councillors, the staff, media and all those listening in at home, and welcome you to the first council meeting of 2025. I'll call for apologies and we'll hear extraordinary business. I know of none. Declarations of interest.
Yes,
Councillor Wilson.
Yes, I have an interest in some public excluded business, which I'll withdraw from.
Item 13. We'll note that. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting of the 18th of December. And looking for any corrections, alterations. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. I would move in a second that the minutes of the 18th of December council meeting be taken as read and confirmed. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Lovett, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Next item of business is Submission Resource Management Amendment Bill, page 5. And we have someone? Lou, is it? And Brad. The lights up here are very bright and I can barely see a thing. I see them now, the lights are on. Welcome. Anything further to add to the report?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go for questions. Questions, councillors, on the submission from the Resource Management Consenting and Other Systems Amendment Bill. I do have one question. It's on page 15 of our agriculture. It says agriculture is 29% of our GDP. I just question that figure because I know dairying makes up over $1.2 billion worth of, on the Econometrics report, of our economy, and our economy is about 2.7 billion, so dairying alone is over half. So I just query that figure.
So that is based on the Infometrics information that we received. So that in terms of what that shows, that it shows that our primary industries, which includes agriculture, is 29.4%, or 3%, I think, for 23. And then other areas that make that up are what are called goods producing industries, which is 20.7, other services, which is 22.9, high value services, which is 12.1. So they're covering things like electricity, gas, water and wastewater, construction, wholesale trade, retail trade, accommodation and food services, information, media and telecommunications. So it is certainly the biggest part of our economy. So because the 29.3 is for Ashburton, so when you can compare that to New Zealand, it's like 5.8%. So it's in terms of the proportion, that's sort of where it sits.
I just look at those two numbers that I mentioned, and it comes from Infometrics, the dollar figures. I don't know who's correct. Same.
So yeah, so this is that figure's showing the gross domestic product by industry in terms of the percentage overall.
And what's this figure? How's this figure differing to that?
Your figure, you mean? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not sorry. I'm not.
If the GDP of the district is 2.7 billion-ish, and dairy's 1.2 of it, then you've got your beef and your lamb and your cropping and your seeds, etc., on top of it, which is all agriculture.
Yep.
It adds up to more than 29%. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So I'm not sure we're comparing the right apples with apples there, but I mean we can have a look at it and make sure.
Offline, and I can see your table, and it might.
Yep.
Give me
Yep. Okay.
Thanks. Question, Councillor Todd.
Thank you. You obviously expressed concern about clause 30. Can you just expand on that, what your opposition is to that is?
We all understand the question?
Sorry, we're just
If it's too hard.
having a bit of a
I'll
conference.
I'll
So
I'll
clause 30 in terms of, we're talking farm plans, that's the one?
Yeah, it was just in your report, you did talk about clause 30 of being against it. I just wonder if you want to expand on it.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. I thought we were referring to clause 30 in the amendment bill. Sorry. So yeah, the farm plans. Farm plans aren't being introduced through the bill. But what the bill is aiming to do is streamline the process. So allowing industry providers to certify and audit the plans, which will make it the process a little less burdensome for farmers.
Okay, cool.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm looking on page 16, point 37, just on the solar farms, and I'm just wondering, is the Lauriston farm New Zealand's biggest solar farm? I don't know if it's officially open. Should we be referencing that or wording that a different way?
Through the chair, I don't believe it is. What is OCZ, a large solar farm?
It says New Zealand's largest solar farm has been constructed in Lauriston, with another being constructed in Mount Somers.
Yeah, we can have a look at whether or not it has been completed. Hold it up.
Councillor Cameron.
I have two questions, please, Mr Mayor. The first one relates to, again, and I always bring this up, the population size of the district, which is a nice segue from Neil's question with regards to the GDP. We've got 38,000 that you received from Infometrics, you reference, and I do know that we've recently had the census, which was less than 38,000. How do you choose one source of intelligence over another source?
So the census is basically a snapshot at a point in time. So generally it's lower than what's called your estimated population.
Okay.
So, and your estimated population includes the difference in terms of migration to the district and births and deaths over that time. So that's generally where the difference is.
Okay. I think this bill sort of sets out to try and devolve a little bit of consenting and compliance things from the council to other bodies or to individuals or to authorities or other people. Some of the things that we've commented on is the NPS on urban development. Now I've got to find that point. Can you remind me where that is? Because I've been looking at the water one. There was something in there that I had a question about. Can you shout me out the thing?
It's point 45, the housing package starts.
I'll have to come back. I might come back to that. We'll do the discharge of water into waterways.
Page and.
Oh, there'll be in there somewhere too. Was it page 14? Yeah. Discharging into receiving waters. We don't discharge anything into receiving waters. You know, we don't put anything into the Ashburton River other than stormwater that has been treated through our special rain gardens and things. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of wastewater, you mean?
Yeah. Well, it's got Council Resource Management Act, Freshwater and Other Matters Amendment Act. Council understands amendments will allow regional councils to make rules regarding discharging into receiving waters. Presumably they're not going to be more lenient. I'm guessing they'll be more stringent. That's not clear in the submission, but...
Yeah, it's the changes to that, I think, are to clarify some recent case law decisions that have been made that were previously not interpreted in that way. But it doesn't, we're not the consenting authority under it, so it doesn't...
Yeah, because we're not the consenting authority, and as we are sort of the kaitiaki of our own natural resources, we don't want to see discharges going into our river. If consents are devolved out of council to other agencies, we wouldn't want to see that being allowed.
Just through you, Mr Mayor, there is a clear direction from this government that in some circumstances it should be allowed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Whereas under the previous government it was being ruled out per se. This government is saying if you treat, this is my understanding, if you treat the the water to a high enough standard, then it may be possible to discharge to receiving
Yeah.
water environment. So it is actually allowing it from the current regime as opposed to making it harder.
That's right. Well, that's what I read from it.
Yeah.
So section 20 says, blah, 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 are being achieved in place to ensure positive outcomes are being achieved in relation to the aquatic life and biodiversity. Do we need stronger wording around that? Point 20.
We can certainly put stronger wording, and if
Like we would
that's
like
what
to
you
be
like.
consulted prior to this happening or something
We've been consulted now.
in this document, but this isn't rigid enough or stringent and doesn't say anything.
So, I mean, I guess the point that we're making there is that we want to be sure that there's sufficient monitoring that the regional council would be subject to in the event that change came through.
Councillor Lovett?
I'm just going to keep on the subject. Will that affect Marv with their water, what the discharging into waterways, whatever, at the end of their races and things? Would that be captured in this?
Not as I understand it, because they're not discharging into water.
At the end of, okay.
I'm not aware of
They,
it. There are some
they are.
Groundwater is
groundwater, yes, but not into the.
It's a water.
Okay.
Yeah, it's receiving. There's a question, page 13, number 8, and the first part of it is great council supportive of the amendments aimed at speeding up consenting processing. We're uncertain if long-lived infrastructure, in particular gas pipelines, should be included for longer-term consents. Just wonder why that would be, that we don't have any gas pipelines in our district that I'm aware of, and it is made note of it of Kapuni and there's another one over a couple of pages on 16, and Maui gas lines, they've leaked and whatever. That's okay, let someone else submit on that. It doesn't affect us. But the first part of number 8 is okay, according to me. Yep.
We
Councillor
can
Cameron?
remove that.
Last point on the thing, the heritage buildings, page 18 on Stella, number 64, enabling councils access to the streamlined planning process, of which I didn't know existed, for delisting heritage buildings will provide council with more responsive tool. However, we note it doesn't include the listing of new heritage items or changes to heritage rules. Such changes are likely to be bundled with any delisting which minimises the usefulness of the SPP as a standalone process. Can you help me understand that, please?
Yeah. So through the chair, if we were looking to review the heritage buildings, we'd likely be looking at some of the rules as well. So this is strictly for delisting buildings. So if we were wanting to look at, changing the rules or adding new buildings, we'd still have to go through the normal plan change process.
Okay.
So whilst it does allow us to use a streamlined one, we're unlikely to use it because we're still going to have to use the other side. The streamlined planning process removes a lot of the public consultation and the appeals part of it. So that's why it's faster.
But that doesn't seem a good thing to me.
Yeah, that's why it's probably just for delisting buildings. That's
Well,
why
that-
they've
well,
made it
that's-
quite strict.
That's right. Like, for example, what about delisting our pedestrian bridge? Like, we don't want that delisted. What, say the streamlined process and it's delisted, and we haven't consulted with the public? How's that a good thing?
It would still be a plan change process, so it's
Okay.
not. Council would still have a say in it.
We
It just-
would.
Yes.
And what about the community?
Less of a say, but there's still consultation that happens, but it's more the notification stage that's sped up. So council can still choose to go through consultation with the public on it to get their viewpoint. It just gives us the ability to do it faster.
I don't understand that aspect enough, but I certainly don't support what I'm hearing on that aspect.
Right, we debate that. Any further questions? So we have a recommendation there on page 7. Council approves the submission of the Environment Select Committee to the Environment Select Committee on the Resource Management Amendment Bill as attached, and probably with the words as altered with discussion. Just before I get a move in a second, when's the submission due?
10th of February.
10th, which is not far away. So we've had a couple of little changes here. So if we approve it here shortly, could we send that out for the councillors to look at via email, just to confirm that's what they thought they were getting, and then send it off once they've either commented or not. But
Yes,
have
we
it
can do that.
there in time. Yeah, thanks. Councillor Todd?
Moving.
Moving? Right, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Hooper. Open for debate. Thank you, team. Councillor Cameron.
Where, can I go back to the heritage building point 64?
You're debating it?
I'm debating it.
Yeah.
We are, it says that we're supportive of having a more responsive tool. So that implies less overhead and less burdensome, administration tasks, which I think we're all probably all supportive of. But we note it doesn't include the listing of new heritage items or changes to heritage rules. Such changes are likely to be bundled with any delisting. That's vague to me, and I don't support that.
Have you a suggestion for changing that?
I would just leave the council with a more responsive tool. I'd just leave it there and get rid of the rest of it.
Just, does anyone else agree with that?
No, isn't it to do, because there's many towns through New Zealand that have lots of historic buildings that they can't do anything with, and no one wants to do anything with. And I think Gisborne's one of the best examples. It has many buildings in its town centre which it can't do anything with, but no one wants to do anything, so they're sort of trapped in Never Land. Isn't it to do with that? Or Wellington has that big building that they wanted to try and deal with, but they weren't allowed to. We're trying to get them out of that problem.
Yeah, I think all it's saying is the submission is we're noting that it doesn't include. So here's a note to the panel. May want to strengthen this up yourselves. We're noting that it's absent.
And that's fine. I note that and I accept that. But what I think is worrisome is such changes are likely to be bundled with any delisting. What does that mean? You list one and you delist one. Like you delist a bridge, but you list something else, or I don't know. I just think it's vague and non-specific.
What do you want to do about it?
Leave it. Get rid.
Does everyone agree with that? Yeah. I got a one nod. Is the mover and seconder happy that we remove that last sentence, which starts with such changes? Mover?
Personally, I'm happy to keep it the way it is.
Keep it the way it is. Seconder? Well, it doesn't matter. The mover doesn't want it removed. You'll have to amend it if you want to do it.
Can I ask the councillor Todd what he understands that to mean, please?
I'm happy, as I think Councillor Wilson alluded to, is that there's buildings that are stuck in limbo that no one wants to deal with, and this gives the council the opportunity to move those buildings on if need be.
With trying not to be quarrelsome, that isn't what it says.
Well, you're debating with
It says, however, we note it doesn't. Such changes are likely to be bundled with any delisting, which minimises the usefulness of the SPP, the streamlined process, as a standalone process. Implicit to that would be the alternative that perhaps we should bundle them, because it's saying it's not so useful when they're not bundled. When they are, when they're bundled.
Further speakers for or against the motion? Right to reply, Councillor Todd being the mover, if you require. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. One against. I think it was one against. Do you want it noted? Yeah, thanks. Okay, thank you. Next item is number 6, service delivery, review, transportation. Tayaba and Neil, welcome. Questions? Oh, anything further to add?
Nothing further to add. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Questions, councillors?
I've got a.
Just have one question. I'm looking on page 33, and it's just got the services and team structure. And an asset engineer, and you've one of them, perhaps it's a Neil question, what does that person do?
My asset engineer is actually Ravi, who's here, who compiles our asset management plans. And, oh, there he is there. Yes, Ravi, if you can explain more about your, with the NZTA and the claim and
Yeah, so my role is mainly to create active management plan request for funding to NZTA, prepare for long-term plan budgets and all strategic support to the manager and Neil.
Thank you. And then I have another question. A corridor manager, what does a corridor manager do?
the corridor manager manages all of the corridor access requests. So that's all the traffic management, all works that take place in our corridor. So it's all contractors, whether they, any work whatsoever that's done in the corridor has to be approved by the corridor manager.
Right. And a data management officer, what do they do?
Management officer.
Data management.
Oh, the asset management officer, that's the person who looks after all the data in the RAM and updates all the information on the assets. And as work is done, it gets entered so that the age and condition of all the assets is constantly updated, and it's fed into GIS.
Okay, good. And the last one, the applications officer, roading, what do they do?
That's they deal with entranceways, culverts, underpasses. I don't know, Ravi, can you
So
expand on
that's
that?
include the vehicle crossing applications, that sort of applications.
And works alongside the corridor manager as well, assisting them.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for that clarification. Liz?
Thank you, through the chair. Same page 33, and you've just mentioned a contractor's hired to do the TTM auditing. So you said roughly 16 hours a week. When did that
So
new
that's
requirement come in?
That's fairly new. That's just come in recently, and as the government has required us to now report on traffic management information. So that's, I think we're only in the second month of getting that data.
And that will always be a contracted position, or could that move
It's just
in-house?
at the moment in terms of workload. It's just someone who's assisting us while our corridor manager is fully extended with the applications. So we'll monitor that, and then we'll, depending on the workload.
Okay, thank you.
Is that a, what sort of FT is that requirement for that job?
It's a part-time, so it's 16 hours a week, and as opposed to 40 hours a week. So it's maximum 16 hours a week. That's what it's working out to be at the moment, just with dealing with it.
Councillor Cameron?
In this document, page 36, you talk about regional collaborative groups and how we're part of a regional, I'm presuming that's Selwyn and Timaru. Is there like a trade-off with regional collaborative groups? Like, can you say to Timaru, oh, you get that money this year and we'll get it next year, or we'll give you this for that, or there's nothing like that?
No, not at all. No, a lot of this collaboration is done sharing information, working on standardising contract specifications, working together on asset management, sharing information by visiting each other's networks and seeing what they do and learning from other staff. So that's the biggest benefit we
rely on the NZTA, this is the question.
Yes.
We rely on it to do regional prioritisation.
Yes, well, it comes through the Regional Transport Committee.
Yeah.
They prioritise the region's priorities.
And who's on that representing our district?
The Mayor.
Oh, the Mayor's on that, so you'll be lobbying hard there, I guess.
We developed the regional transport plan, which is
Yes.
what they work off. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So,
Just that extra work you have to do for traffic management for the contractor at 16 hours a week.
Yes.
How's that funded, being a new position?
It is part of our subsidised budget, so it comes out of our 50% subsidy. It's part of our program work.
We get extra monies for that?
I'll have to check.
Because
I'm not
of
sure
that
if that
new
has.
requirement we have to do now, do we?
I'll look into that. I'll find out from.
That's budgets come from network and asset management budget, so we already scope for the consultancy charges under that budget.
Thank you. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. Related, but I don't know if it comes into this review, public transport, how would, if we wanted to get a public transport trial going or something like that, we've talked about it in the past, but would it relate back to this? Is there a gap in there from this review? Or is it because it's in
No.
ECAN?
Yeah, this review doesn't touch on the services
Anything like
provided.
that.
This is about how the
Yes.
services that we have are provided. So if there's a gap in the services like public transport, that's to continue to advocate through the
Right.
normal channels. That the 17A review isn't a part of advocacy of a service we don't yet have.
Okay, just thought it might have been a good way to bring it up. Thanks.
Close. No further questions as recommendation in front of you. Councillor Wilson moved. Councillor Brown seconded. Thank you, team. Open for debate. If there being no debate, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Next item is number 7, the LocoDelegations Review 2025, page 43. Mark and Tony. Anything further to add?
Just really to highlight that it's an update based on work that we received from the Simpson Grierson review of the LocoDelegations product that we are part of. So a lot of this work is related to that and updating our existing delegations register to reflect that.
Questions? Councillor McMillan.
Did we do a workshop on this LocoDelegations this term of council, or was that last term of council?
My recollection was it was this term.
I don't think it was a
earlier this
workshop,
term.
it was a recommendation, I think.
There was a discussion, I think, by this council
Yep.
to understanding the delegations model and what all the delegations were and how they sat, etc. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was this council.
This council.
Yeah, it was, and I know I wasn't present for it. No. Councillor Cameron.
Is this revision intended to make things run smoother or more easily? Is that the intention of updating the loco delegations?
Absolutely, and to bring it up to date to ensure that everyone has the right delegations applied.
So
to
like
them.
every job role has the right
Correct.
delegation?
Correct.
When we've just gone through the annual budget, and there were some things that were delegated under the delegate, the authority to delegate, and we felt a little bit of discomfort around that. Would this now be our opportunity to review those delegations?
Through the council, potentially yes, but it might be better if we were to have a discussion, perhaps through a workshop, to discuss those in greater detail. I guess there could be unintended consequences from changing a delegation today on the fly without understanding ramifications. So if that's what you're thinking that you'd like to try and do, then we could accommodate that.
Well, I think that's the point Liz raised, and I'd probably support that, Liz, if you wanted to bring that up or ask that we have one.
We can let this matter lie on the table pending a workshop to get better understanding of what the delegations are and what they do.
I went through the delegations manual last night, and there's some things I couldn't really understand. Like there was, if I looked at one, I've just got a photograph of it somewhere. It said, and it's unclear, where is it? Parks and Reserves, authority to allocate reserves, GM infrastructure and open spaces manager. But I couldn't find out what that meant.
Yeah. So there is not understanding of what the delegations are, and it's an important role that what you do is you're delegating to others on your behalf. So perhaps a workshop would be appropriate to go through them, bring this back. So if someone would like to move, we let the matter lie on the table. In a second, Councillor McMillan. Councillor Cameron. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Lies on the table and pending workshop, and we'll bring it back. Thank you. Next item is number 8, which is elected members' remuneration, page 48. Thank you. Tony, anything further to add? Straight to questions.
Thank you.
Questions, councillors? So this is just basically setting the remuneration pool for after 1st of July of this year, basically. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
And the pool is set by higher authorities
The Remuneration Authority.
out of Wellington. So, yeah. Councillor Cameron.
I'd like to make a comment, but shall I wait till comments?
Questions? Yeah, questions at the moment. Any further questions? No. There's a recommendation there. The council receives the Remuneration Authority report. A mover, Councillor Lovett. Seconder. Councillor Todd. Open for debate. Councillor Cameron.
I note that the things we've looked at, like the review of the RMA or aspect of the RMA and the LocoDelegations are all put in to drive efficiencies. I wonder how the increase in salary of $5,000 or whatever it is, or it's, what is it, 484, 466 to 484, so that's 5%, is it? I wonder how that's driving efficiencies. It just seems at odds with the government initiative to drive efficiencies. And
This is what you get paid. You'll be as efficient as possible, I would assume.
I'm sure, but more money does make it more efficient.
But you've got cost of living increases which do affect you, as does everyone else. So, not set by council, set by others, and must be distributed to councillors. And the mayor's determination is separate. Recommendation then moved and seconded. Any further debate? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Next item is page 55, Ashburton Art Gallery and Heritage Centre, mechanical plant relocation. Welcome, Tanya. And Renee. Anything further to add to the report?
I just want to make a comment that we, as I've outlined in the report, we met with each of the 6 individual landowners separately early December last year. Very appreciative of their time and effort to ask some really well-meaning questions. I think it helped us and as well as them to understand the options we're putting to them. So it was a constructive process, but I just want to reiterate the thanks to those neighbours for their time and efforts to consider and the feedback we got. We did get one late submission after the council agenda was finished from one of the neighbours who didn't have a strong view, but if they had a view, option 1 would have been their view, which is obviously different to the other neighbours.
Yeah. Question time. Caroline.
Did the other neighbours, so there's 6 neighbours interviewed, 5 of them preferred option 2.
Through the chair, so there was 4 submitted, so 2 did not want to submit to it. So of the 4, 3 preferred option 2 and 1 one had said that they weren't bothered either way, but liked the look of option 1 better.
And based on our interpretation of consultations in the past, the other 2 had no strong view, would be what we would probably interpret lack of response for. Yeah, okay.
Cost of option 1 to option 2, is there much cost difference between them?
Through the chair, in terms of the enclosure itself, no, there's not a great deal of cost. It's probably that next step, which is the actual build, but you're not going to know which one is more expensive until you go to that detailed design. So with option 2, you've got a little bit more wriggle room in terms of, so at the boundary, this is where you've got to make the noise. And so option 2 gets shielded by the building, so that presents a little more wriggle room in terms of what would need to be done to make that noise at the boundary.
Councillor McMillan?
Thank you. Option 2, and I think you've mentioned somewhere about losing the amount of footpath, but you still have the legal amount of footpath. And on one of the diagrams, it's really hard to see where the footpath is. What length or what's the legal requirement for a footpath, and are we just on that?
I think the distinction here is it's a very wide footpath in front of the building.
Realise that,
What we're proposing is the building to our boundary. So if it was a private dwelling, it would never have been, not necessarily ever been a footpath, and the private owner could build to their boundary without there being any restriction. So the legal footpath will remain, which is in the road corridor. Yeah.
Oh, I understand. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Cameron?
Thank you. I have a question around the resource consent for the building. I understand that our signage options were limited because of the resource consent. Like we can only put out a little sandwich board, and we can't do flags and all the rest of it because of the resource consent. Is that correct?
The resource consent has a whole host of conditions. This report is really about the location of the plant.
I understand that, but I'm getting there. I'm trying to get my questions in. I think we're limited with signage. So if we build out the front, are we blocking the opportunity to put signs out? Because if you put your little sandwich board on a narrower footpath, presumably that is some obstruction, because the option 2 builds out to the front of the road. So signage, would that be obscured or minimum? Because you're not allowed to write on the building or anything like that, are you?
It's only building to the footpath for a small portion of the length of the building. So there'd still be other areas, I think, to answer your question, where you could potentially
If you
put
were
signage.
coming from the south north, it might be a little bit of a different story, because you'd come upon the sign almost as you're going past it.
Yeah,
the
to
other
take your
way,
point.
I accept your point, but
Yeah.
I think, beg your pardon, going from the north south, you'd be past before you see the sign, probably.
So when we had a workshop, we gave direction as to where to put the plant. Where did we decide or give direction on that workshop to put it?
It was subject to the consultation with the neighbours and coming back here.
Right. So we're there now. Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. If we selected option 1, are we likely to get some kickback from the 3 neighbours who prefer option 2?
I'd be reluctant to speak on their behalf. We've put 2 options to them. We've got a preferred option, particularly based on the noise levels and the lower noise levels. It would have to follow, this process has to follow a resource consent process, so I couldn't predetermine. I think you could probably take views from the submissions we've received, but I couldn't speak on their behalf. So.
Okay. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the last 10 years, they had, or council had to go lower than what is normal. Is that correct? Is it still now?
That's correct. So through the resource consent process, there was a mediation, and there was agreed consent conditions with a noise limit. There's obviously there's a different district plan noise limit, and that's what we're proposing to go to through this process, should we be successful in the resource consent process.
So we're not back to normal?
No,
For
because
everyone else,
we're
so
operating
it's
within the
still
bounds
there.
of the resource consent, so that
So
overrides.
there's no end on that?
No, the resource consent's a land use consent that lasts indefinitely unless it's varied, which is what we're proposing to do here.
So just on the consultation you've had, you had 3 responses from 6 neighbours and they preferred option 2. So you didn't hear from the other 3, is that right?
Just the late submission?
1 just come in.
Correct.
What, you did say, but what option do they prefer? Option 1. So we've got 3 for option 1, 1 for option 2, and 2 that, other way around, and 2 that haven't said anything. Yep. Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Part of this presentation talks about the decibels and the noise. Residential A, B, C and D, am I looking at the right line? Correct, is that correct? Page 74 on Stella.
Can you repeat the question?
I want to understand the parameters of the decibel, the noise level that is currently allowed as per the consent for that zone, and I'm just confirming it's residential A, B, C and D in that table, in table 11.1, is that right?
So the district plan limit,
Yeah.
it is residential A, B and C. It might be easy to look at its paragraphs 8 to 10 of the report, where we've outlined both the district plan noise limits and the resource consent limits, and you'll see the comparison.
But they'll be the same, I'm guessing.
No, that's the point. Yeah. The resource consent, so the nighttime noise is the one that is predominantly we're interested in here. So under the resource consent, the plant can emit noise up to 30 decibels. Under the district plan permitted activity level, it's 40 currently. So what we're proposing to do, should the resource consent application be successful, is just raise the noise limits to the district plan permitted level of 40. So it's to remove that 30 decibel limit from the consent.
Okay, thank you.
Just take over mover and a seconder of the recommendation. Councillor Millen, Councillor Ellis, moved and seconded. Open for debate. Councillor Cameron. Thank you, ladies.
I do not support this recommendation. I support the alternative option, which is option 1. I have many reasons for that. I just outlined 3. The first one would be the aesthetic. I think, and I've surveyed a few people around the table, I think most people think that option 1 is a more in keeping with the character of the building and is a more attractive option, and we get to retain a tree, which is important, I think. The second reason is I went to Google, Mr. Google, and downloaded a picture of the decibels. And if I tell you now, which is got here, threshold of hearing is 0, quiet natural area with no wind is 20, a whisper is 25, and a household fridge is 55, and a suburban area at night is 40. So I think we're talking very, very low volumes. And the third area is I have concerns about, I mean, it sort of follows on for the first year. I have some concerns about the appearance. Like if the footpath gets narrowed, there'll be no, people enjoy that. It's a pretty corner. People can walk across and sort of, it puts our building on display more, makes it more of a place, in my view. And I think the noise level is, we went to the EA Network Centre and we spoke to a man and we asked him, I think I asked him this question, and he said there's no difference. And when we talk about, like, oh, we've got 32 to 33 or we've got 36 to 38, that is really an insignificant difference in the noise thing. And if and people say, oh, well, it might go to 50, so we want to build a bit of capacity in there. But we're getting engineers and we're modelling it. It might go to 50 if someone goes along there with a car with no exhaust. But, it's not, we don't put 2 pool liners in a swimming pool in case we get a leak. I think it's not a meaningful comparison to look at 32 versus 33 or 36 to 38 decibels. Essentially, it's 3 decibels difference, which is, a quiet natural area with no wind is 20 decibels. You've got to wonder how meaningful that is.
Councillor Cameron, you can either vote against the motion and make no progress, or you can move an amendment if you wanted to test the meeting to see if they would agree with you.
Is now the time to do that?
Now.
Oh, do you want us to go off?
May have to if the council. No, I'll take your for and against first, and then the councillor may wish to do an amendment if she wants. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I'm speaking for the motion of option 2. Reason being that we've heard from the neighbours, and I think that is the most important part of this whole decision and discussion, is that the neighbours have supported option 2. And I think also there is room for expansion if needed be. So in the report it says that option 2 could be expanded if we needed more HVAC in that area. So while it might be not everyone's cup of tea and not visually accepted by everyone, I think that in this case we need to listen to the neighbours of the Art Gallery Museum, and that's the most important thing.
Councillor Mackel.
Yes, I've just done a little bit of homework and chatted to a refrigeration engineer that was in the business for 40 years in Christchurch, so some considerable experience. So I'm speaking in favour of the motion of option 2, and his advice was if the units were placed on a shady side of the building, it would considerably extend their life expectancy. And that's purely just a maintenance thing and a saving to council as far as replacement, etc. of those units.
Councillor Cameron, you've spoken once.
I was going to move an amendment. Do you want me to hang up?
No, okay, go for it. No, take it.
Before I do that, I'd just like to comment on one thing. 3 of the neighbours supported it, 1 didn't support it, and the other 2 didn't comment. So you're speaking on behalf of 3 of the neighbours.
You may like to do the amendment and speak to it exactly how you're speaking.
Right. I'd like to change it to option 1, and I can't. Option 1.
The recommendation as it is with the word option 2 replaced option 1.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Councillor Cameron is moving that amendment. Is there a seconder? The train. Oh, Councillor Brown, you're seconding?
And I second it.
Oh. Okay, speak to the motion, Councillor Cameron, then we'll come to Councillor Lovett. If you want to speak to the motion. The amendment on that.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the amendment for the reasons I've outlined. For the reasons I've outlined, and that it's more aesthetic. I don't think we have the overall consensus of the neighbours with regards to the comment from the engineering refrigeration person. We have the decibels measured, so I think that's been addressed in the report, and personal anecdotes I set aside. I'm very concerned about the signage. I'm concerned about the change in the appearance, and I'm not concerned about 3 decibels of sound.
Councillor Lovett. Speaker for or against the amendment?
I'm against the amendment, and I think I'll stick with option 2. We have been out, we've consulted the neighbours, and it's a waste of time if we don't listen to them. And I think when looking at the picture we've got here, whether it needs to come out as, we could look at, does it need to come out as far as the footpath? Is this a final drawing, or could it be slightly amended? But I'm still for option 2.
Okay, Councillor Todd.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I speak in favour of the amendment. I believe the aesthetically pleasing to was option 1. But the other thing really, if my memory serves me right, is that when we last discussed this, is that the noise level from State Highway 1 with trucks and cars at night was actually higher than the air conditioning units. So to me, it really is a bit of a non-event, really.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I speak against the amendment. I believe our best chance of success of actually getting the necessary statutory consents is for going for option 2. I agree it doesn't look as good, but if we want our museum and art gallery to function as it should, we need to do this process, and we need to go with the most likely option to succeed, and for me that's option 2.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I also speak against this option 1, and the reason being that we did have a workshop. We went through the options, and the suggestion was to go back to the neighbours and get their feedback. While we only heard from 4 neighbours, all 6 of them have obviously had a chance to give feedback. So I still feel that we need to listen to the neighbours.
No more speakers for or against the amendment. I'll put the amendment. All in favour, please say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The amendment now becomes the motion. That was passed. The amendment now becomes the motion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Against? 3, 4. Option 1. Thank you. Next item is number 10, Ashburton Car Club Road Closure. Welcome, Mr. McCann. I see Miss Surridge there as well. Welcome.
Another thing to add to what we said earlier, the applications officer also deals with road closures.
Welcome, Poppy, for your first report to council. Anything further to add to your report?
No, nothing.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to ask, like with all these road closures for these events, do we ever get feedback from them, the numbers attending these events? It would be good to see how many vehicles they are running on these events on our roads, and whether, you know, the condition of them at the finish, you know, is it the same? You know, do they do any damage or?
Through the chair, we don't typically get that information. We could perhaps ask them to supply it, and we could include that in our activity briefing.
Just as a, you know, just
to give you a trend of how many people, or even just that information of how many people. Yeah.
I'm all for, you know, having these events. It's great for our community.
The road gets inspected before and after the event, doesn't it, to see for, if there's any damage?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. Further, Councillor Hooper.
Oh, happy to move if there's no more questions.
No more questions. Councillor Hooper moves. Councillor Lovett seconded.
Yeah.
Thank you, team. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Next item is the item 11, the financial report. And it's the December 24 variance report. Start on page 84. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. May I ask a question, please?
Yes.
We've just gone through the budget, and I asked a question with regards to staff, payments to staff and suppliers. I didn't ask for that. I wanted to know what the wage bill was for the council, and I was advised it was in this document. I can't see it. Please, can you tell me where it is?
Page 85, there's a total payments to staff and suppliers under the operating expenditure.
Yes, I see that, yeah. But I wanted the salary of the staff, not the suppliers. What are suppliers? Are they like off the spot or whatever?
Non-staff.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so we'll break out that number into the categories that you
Thanks,
wish.
Hamish.
Yeah.
Page 85. Stop me as you want to ask a question. 86 and 87. '88, '89. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. I want to go back to transportation footpaths.
Page
You've passed it, sorry, I was a bit slow on the uptake. Page 85.
86, 85.
85. This is just a general question. We didn't get all our low risk, low priority funding, and that was mainly in the footpath area and some in the safety area and other areas. Why is that variance not permanent?
Well, we can confirm whether or not the budget was adjusted, but that was an application for subsidy as opposed to expenditure. So if our budget remained at the level where we applied, then there will be a permanent variance, but it'll be matched by a permanent variance in expenditure, so it'll just cancel itself out. If, however, this budget has been adjusted, which we may have done, because I know we adjust the budget when we have the carryovers approved, then that is, it's just never money we were ever going to get, not expenditure we're never going to make, so it just disappears.
Yeah.
But Erin might be able to answer more.
Yeah, so we could, if we are directed to do so, make a forecast adjustment for that part that's not actually going to be received by council, and then the same on the side of the operating expenditure and the capital expenditure that's not going to take place. We could do an adjustment in the forecast, but bearing in mind when we report at year end, because it's based on the annual, the LTP year one budget, that's what's been approved to be reported against at that point.
Okay, so if you change it, we're not accurately reporting against what we said we would report in the LTP. Because we are doing less of this, because it's been reallocated to different areas.
Yes, and to get a clearer picture for the monthly reporting, we could do that forecast adjustment or that revised budget.
That would be interesting, but is that burdensome for you and your department?
It takes some time, but it's not unachievable.
Well, I don't want to.
And it won't tell you anything other than reminding you didn't get the subsidy. It's not that a contract got awarded and it was expensive. It's not that we've made savings. It's not anything except you wanted the subsidy and we didn't get it.
So when I look here at revised budget full year, it was 1.5 million. So I guess it's been revised, has it? Or
the revised budget refers to it contains the carryovers that were approved back in September, October.
Okay, and we're spending the carryovers.
Yes, they're budgeted to be spent.
So we've got a variance of 881. So at the end of the year, we won't have that variance because we're spending the revised budget anyway. Is that right?
Just the issue about whether the variance will exist is how we report against the permanent variances. We'll say, so you'd have to go to the particular activity. If it's transport, you'd go to page 86. You'll have a look at the expenditure. We note on the far right whether it's permanent or not. If we're saying no, then we don't expect it to be a permanent variance. If we're saying yes, then you drop down to the next page where we explain why we think it's a permanent variance. So that's how the structure of this report works, and therefore, without assuming we're still talking about footpaths, there's no expected permanent variance. Therefore, there's no commentary around that. We don't expect that to be a permanent variance. The only thing that would change would be if you wanted us to reflect our application to NZTA, which wasn't granted, and then we would be telling you every month we didn't get that subsidy, if that was useful.
Councillor Wilson?
Will there be a review done? I know, with pleasure, the extra money being invested in the roading network, it's showing up here, it hasn't been spent yet, but it will be spent, obviously. Will there be a review done through probably the activity briefing that the ramifications of the change in government policy where we redistributed some of that money from some areas to others? Because often people think if you take something out, it disappears, therefore that's a bad thing. But it would be great to understand what the ramifications of that was, and if there was none, well, it was a good thing, if you understand what I mean. Like, money was reallocated from some of the, I think it was unsubsidised roading areas to actual physical putting tar seal on the road. It'd be great to understand that. I just see the number here, but to bring it up to.
That's something. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to say I don't think that's a financial thing. If you're talking about the impact of the choices you made around the expenditure, then that would definitely be a question to ask the roading manager or the GM infrastructure to try and understand how that has resonated on the ground. The financial report is simply aimed at telling you where and the level of money that was invested against a particular category. But I think Neil and I are noting that that'd be a useful thing for us to reflect on in a different way of reporting other than the financial report.
If I can just finish my conversation earlier, Neil, is that all right?
Yep.
Thank you. And that's the point I make. I think that would be good for the community to see. We didn't spend whatever it is. We're $2.5 million short. We didn't spend that $2.5 million on the footpaths or on whatever else it was going to be spent on. It's the same as what Rich said, but another way. But we spent it over here, and you can see that it's gone over there. But just for accuracy, that was all.
Yes, this report isn't ever been aimed at giving you a complete detailed picture of where things are spent other than at an activity level. But if you need to drill in to understand in more detail, the activity briefing would be the place to try and get that level of understanding.
Page 90, 91, wastewater, stormwater. 92, 93. 94, 95. 96 and 97. Councillor Cameron.
Thanks. The delay in the UV filters, is that coming with an extra cost, or is it just a supply chain thing and it's just the same price but they just didn't get here on time?
Through the chair, no extra cost, it's just a delay in completion time. And a carryover will be required.
The UV filters, are they supplied by the contractor or does council get them?
The contractor did order them from Canada, and now for the next batch we are considering getting them ourselves before we go to tender, just to speed up the process.
Right. Hopefully they won't have a tariff on them. 96, 97. 98, 99. Just on the forestry, we're not harvesting this year. Is that what it's saying?
That's correct, that the anticipated harvest is unlikely to occur in this financial year at this stage.
Don't we have a contractor employed to do this?
You'll be getting a report to council in due course around options for this particular block. It's not as straightforward as initially anticipated due to the location of the planned harvest.
Thank you. 100 to 101. 102, 103. 104 dividends. 105. Councillor Cameron.
And another thing for my own benefit. Resource consents, we're spending...
Page...
Oh, I beg your pardon, page 103. 103. There's a variance, but I'm not really too worried about that. But resource consents, this year we plan to spend $727,000 on resource consents. Will the bill that we just discussed, if that goes...
Sorry, that's an income line.
Oh, okay. Will we just discussed the RMA revisits, review. Will that alter that or not really? Like, will that still be the same?
Sorry, I apologise, Councillor. The income matches the expenditure, so that number is actually the same. So I apologise for my earlier comment saying it was income. The number is the same on both sides. So your first question was
no need to apologise. No, it's not really about the number. It's just about the speeding up the RMA process. Does that alter the resource consents and the cost of them and the income and the outgoing and all the rest of it?
Time will tell, Councillor.
Okay, thanks.
Page 106 and 7. Stick your light on, Councillor Cameron.
Oh.
Page 108, 109. 110, 111. And 111, the receivables, you're working on them, no doubt. Having much success.
That's correct, and there'll be a quarterly report coming to audit and risk next week on.
Councillor Cameron.
Page 107. When we look at our borrowing, we've got one very low that we fixed in 2020 for $5 million at 0.97, but the rest of it's 4% to, well, we go up as far as 6%, don't we? And what did we put in our annual plan? Was it 3.2?
3.7.
3.7. And that's been validated. I asked that question at the time, but it'd be good to see a few 3.7s down there.
The thing to remember with the external lending costs that you're getting here, we've also got swaps, interest rate swaps in place to try and to get a better weighted average cost of capital.
Okay.
So we have all that's all factored in when our advisors give us the figure that they are projecting.
Okay, thank you.
Takes us to the end of the financial report. Move in a second that we receive the report. Thank you, ladies. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Millen. Put the motion all in favour, we receive the report. Carried. Thank you. Time away, 2:06. We'll move into committee, and we have long-serving staff. New starts at 2:30, so we may move into committee now, and come out of committee at 2:30 when we probably do the in-committee stuff, and then we'll go to long-serving staff. Councillor Ellis moved. We're into committee. Councillor McMillan seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Carried.
going back live, Tim.
Welcome back to the open part of council meeting, and we're up to long-serving staff and new starts. Katie, please.
Right, today we have one new starter. Our new starter today is Shannon Williams. Shannon has joined our open spaces team as a horticulturalist. Now you'll probably see Shannon around. He works out the front at Bering Square East, so he's working around there. So if you see him, you should say hi. Thanks, Shannon. For service recognition this week, we have Taylor Hampton, who is celebrating 5 years with Ashburton District Council. Go up. Taylor has actually been part of the ADC team for a lot longer than 5 years. She actually started as a lifeguard back in 2015, but then left to go to university. While she was studying, she worked as a casual at EA Network Centre, and in the summer of 2018, she became one of our students in the project and operations team. Then in January 2020, she joined the compliance and development team in a permanent role, and then moved to the roading team, where more recently she's been promoted to the data management officer and is responsible for looking after RAM, the database for roading assets. On speaking with her manager, Mark said while she had little knowledge of RAM when she started, her attention to detail, following processes and keenness to learn has meant she has taken to the role and has become proficient in a very short time. She engages with other RAM users across the region and contributes to those discussions and is always willing to ask questions or seek advice. She has good knowledge on processes and systems from across council and is always willing to help other staff with issues. She's an absolute joy to have as a team member, as she contributes so much, not only from a work perspective, but also the social side of the team and the wider council. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank Taylor for her contribution and commitment to ADC.
Thank you, Katie. That's it. So we'll welcome you to join us for afternoon tea. We can have a chat. And I think that's the end of business for your council meeting today. So I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you all for it.